So it looks like I have to break this down into four parts, not to have one big long lecture. I have four changes to show. The first one we looked at was an increase in demand. Now we're going to look at a decrease in supply. And so again, this label, this is supply, that's demand. Equilibrium price is over here, PE1. Quantities are measured down here. Equilibrium quantity is QE1, just like we started before. And this time we're going to decrease supply, and that means it's going to shift inward to the left. And so this would be a decrease in supply. S1, D1, make this S2. Remember, it's not rising, it's moving inward to the left. So on the left side, I'm going to show all the details. And so the first thing we have to show is what happens after supply decreases. What market situation do we have after supply is decreased? Again, price hasn't changed yet. Price is still there, so at price P1, the quantity supplied is now going to be here. This is the new quantity supplied. Maybe there was a hurricane that wiped out a lot of the production of whatever this good is. Maybe there's increased cost of production. Something bad has happened to the producers, and so now they're producing less. The quantity demanded for consumers is still here. We haven't changed. What affects suppliers does not affect consumers to a large degree. And so we have the price P1 here. We're still trying to buy this amount here. The problem is that's all that's on the market now, the new quantity supplied. So we're trying to buy the old equilibrium amount. It just is not there anymore. And so now the quantity demanded is greater than the quantity supplied. And that means now we have a market shortage. And when we have a shortage, we identify that because the quantity demanded is greater than the quantity supplied. And the shortage does what to price? It causes price to go up. Because again, we have a lot of dissatisfied customers. Every point along the demand line represents a customer, and these people up here are willing to pay more than the price P1, but they cannot find it, and therefore they start to compete with one another. And that's what drives up, say, housing prices. Who drives up housing prices? The buyers do. They bid against one another, they make higher offers, and the price of homes go up. And as that happens, some of the buyers drop out of the market. And so the consumers will be moving this way along the demand line. At the time, a higher price is an inducement for the sellers to offer more. So going back to home prices, if the price of homes is going up, you would find that more people would put their home to the home market, and that would increase the quantity supplied. So if I label this point maybe point A right there with the new quantity supplied after the supply decrease, maybe label this point B. That's the old equilibrium point. And so label this point up here, which would be new equilibrium, C. And so we have A to C, that would be the sellers. They're moving A to C along their supply line right there. Every point, if this is the housing market, every point represents a new house or another house being put on the market. And B to C represents buyers dropping out because the price of homes is getting too expensive for those customers. And the market is moving toward a new equilibrium at point C, where we end up with a higher price, P2, and we end up with a lower equilibrium quantity, QE2. What's happened is now the quantity supply that was right here initially after supply decrease has moved back to the right, not all the way to where it started from, maybe looks like in this case halfway. In the same time, the consumers had dropped out enough, and now the market has reached a new equilibrium at QE2 with price PE2. Over here on the right side, let me show the same thing, just without all the complexity. So D1, S1, this is PE1 and QE1. And you may ask on the exam, well, which graph should I use? And it depends on the question I ask. For example, if I ask you to explain to me what happens after supply had decreased, what situation do we have, that'll be on the left side here. You have to talk about the shortage. On the right side, this would be more of a less complex model that I would show trying to get across the idea of what happens to the equilibrium price and quantity. Because the real use of this tool is to make predictions, to analyze what happens to the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity. Equilibrium price is the stable price in the market. So if supply is going to decrease, we'd like to know what would happen to the price after the process has worked its way through, and what's going to happen to the equilibrium quantity. The equilibrium quantity is the amount that's being bought and sold in the market. So on the left side, we showed all the details. On the right side, let's just show the bottom line. So again, we show a decrease in supply, label that S2. An arrow going to the left shows the reader very clearly we're shifting supply inward to the left. We started here, and sometimes economists might call this point here equilibrium point 1. And then we're going to move over here to equilibrium point 2. And I draw in a higher price, and that's the new equilibrium price. And then we draw in a lower quantity, and that's the new equilibrium quantity. So the right one is a lot cleaner, I would say. Doesn't show all the details. On the left side, all the details are shown here. Now let me finish this out down here. I didn't do that. So the higher price would cause the quantity supplied to increase, and at the same time, the quantity demanded to decrease. And this keeps happening until we're back in equilibrium, where QD is equal to QS. Okay, that's 2 out of 4, and I'll come back with the next 2.